Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love to the author and me. On to the show. You killed the Skull Commander. You have gained 10,000 experience points. A system prompt appears. It means that the Skeleton Commander has been completely killed. The phalanx that clenched the skeleton mo knife suddenly relaxed, and Sumu also breathed a long sigh of relief. The war between the two skeleton legions continues. But in Sumu's view, the war is over. Without the Skeleton Commander, no matter how many these core of skeletons are, they are nothing but scattered sand. His end is nothing more than being killed or enslaved by Sumu and become his little brother. This war did not last long, but there were not many dangers in it. Not to mention the Skeleton Commander's own combat power. The skeleton mages commanded by it alone is enough to bring a fatal threat to Sumu. Fortunately, he won. After killing the skeleton leader, the entire skeleton army became his trophy. Next, Sumu did not rush to absorb the bones of the skeleton leader, but returned to the battlefield, either killing or subduing, and incorporating the remaining elite skeletons in the skeleton army into his own forces. After half an hour, except for more than 10 elite skeletons that had already been killed, all the remaining elite skeletons were enslaved by Sumu and became his skeleton brothers. There are more advanced skeletons. As for the skeleton soldiers, after the skeleton warriors under his command and the younger brothers of the skeleton warriors were full, the remaining skeleton soldiers were all beheaded, which became the experience value for Sumu and his younger brothers to grow. After doing this, Sumu returned to the center of the battlefield. You have absorbed the essence of the bones, and your body is stronger. Your strength increased by 25. Your agility has increased by 18. Your physique has increased by 32 points. Your spirit increased by 5 points. You have obtained the transfer information of the warrior profession template Skull Commander. After all, it is a true warrior rank. Even though Sumu's four-dimensional attributes have grown significantly compared to the previous ones, after absorbing the essence of the Skeleton Commander's bones, his four-dimensional attributes have still grown considerably. Of course. More importantly, he also obtained the first material for synthesizing the warrior profession, which belongs to the professional template of the Skeleton Commander. Compared with other warrior professional templates, the 4D attribute bonus of Skeleton Commander is not very high. But this is also relatively speaking, at least compared to the elite professional template owned by Sumu, the four-dimensional attribute bonus of the Skeleton Commander is still very high. Template, Skull Commander. Rank, Warrior Occupation Template. Bonus, HP plus 5000, Strength *45, Agility *30, Constitution *70, Spirit *5. Skill, Encouragement. Inspiration, Active Skill. As a high-level undead, after entering the battlefield, the Skeleton Commander can release the breath of death in his body, bless the skeletons under his command, and greatly increase its attack power, attack speed, and moving speed. Compared with the elite skeleton warriors, the four-dimensional attribute blessing of the Skeleton Commander is 3 or 4 times higher. Even compared with the exclusive professional template that Sumu obtained, it is still a lot higher. With such a high professional template bonus, the gap between the warrior rank and the elite rank is further widened. But Sumu's attention didn't stay long on this warrior's career template. No matter how strong or weak the bonus of this warrior professional template is, it is only the material for synthesizing Sumu's exclusive warrior professional template. After tasting the sweetness of professional integration, there is a top-level warrior professional template in front of him, and Sumu will not change careers rashly. Ended the absorption of the Skeleton Commander's bones. After absorbing the essence of the other elite skeletons he killed on the battlefield, Sumu only looked at his attribute panel after his four-dimensional attribute increased slightly again. Now, he already has 11 free points. With his current strength, about 2 elite skeletons can provide him with a little free attribute. In this war, the number of elite skeletons Sumu personally killed reached 12. The 12 elite skeletons give him 6 free stats. As the skeleton of the warrior rank, the skeleton alone leading himself, provided Sumu with 5 free points. The total number of free points that Sumu has reached as many as 11 points. It is worth mentioning that, when the data of free points appears on the attribute panel, Sumu needs to carefully consider whether to kill or enslay the skeleton brother. Just like the skeleton leader he just killed. By enslaving him, Sumu can certainly gain a formidable combat power, which will greatly reduce his pressure when hunting other warrior skeletons in the follow-up, and the number of skeleton brothers under his command will also skyrocket. But to enslave him, not to mention how long it takes Sumu, the loss of experience points and free points alone is enough for him to feel distressed for a long time. At least, before the free points he obtained were enough, Sumu preferred to kill warrior skeletons and elite skeletons to increase his strength with the free points obtained. Unless it is particularly precious, or if he really needs it, Sumu will enslave it and turn it into his own skeleton brother. For example, the only surviving terrifying mage, for example, the elite professional skeletal archer of archers, for example, the 3 skeleton warriors who can assist Sumu in commanding the skeleton boy, etc. Besides, all the skeletons, whether they were skeleton soldiers, advanced skeletons, or elite skeletons, were all killed by Sumu and his skeleton brothers, and they became nutrients for their growth again. 11 free points. Not much to say, not much to say. Now that everything on the battlefield has been dealt with, Sumu can calm down and use the 11 free points he just obtained to improve his strength again. Split Sky Slash and Blast Slash. It's still these 2 skills before he gets more warrior professional templates and fuses his own warrior professional template. He only has these 2 skills. 11 free points. Sumu can add points separately to upgrade both skills to level 7 or 8, or choose to upgrade one of the skills after the other is full. Seem. No choice at all. Breathing out a long breath in his heart, Sumu focused his attention on the skill of Blast Slash. Obviously, in the goal of hunting warrior skeletons, Blast Slash plays a greater role than Cracked Sky Slash. 1 free point consumption. The level of Blast Slash has been increased from level 5 to level 6, the consumption of stamina value has been further reduced, and the total damage multiplier of its burst has also increased again. Continue to add points. The 2nd free point consumption. The level of Blast Slash has been increased from level 6 to level 7. The 3rd free point consumption. The level of Blast Slash has been increased from level 7 to level 8. After taking a look at the skill description of Blast Slash after 3 consecutive upgrades, Sumu did not hesitate to put 2 free points into it again, and directly raised the skill to the full level of level 10. By this time, the number of light blades erupted from Blast Slash has reached 12. The total damage caused by the 12 light blades is 12 times as much as ordinary damage. Almost doubled. If it is said that if Sumu is faced with the skeleton commander once again, I am afraid that a single outbreak of Blast Storm will be enough to make it lose its combat effectiveness. Only, Sumu was slightly confused when he looked at Blast Slash, who had been upgraded to the full level of 10 by himself. Because the small plus sign behind this skill did not disappear with the full level of the skill, it still exists. It seems to mean that he can still put his free points into the skill, Blast Slash. There are 6 free points left. After thinking about it for a while, Sumu tentatively invested another 1 free point into the already full level Blast Slash. Still level 10. The skill level has not changed, nor has the skill description of Blast Slash. Not enough free points invested? The soul fire in his eyes flickered slightly, and Sumu put 1 free point into it again. Still no change. Perhaps? Glancing at the 4 free points left, Sumu threw in again. 3 points. 4 o'clock. 5 o'clock. When a full 5 free points were put into it, this skill that had consumed Sumu's full 14 free points, finally changed. The original skills disappeared. A brand new skill appeared on Sumu's attribute panel. Death Slash, active skill, the upper level skill of Gale Slash, cannot be upgraded. It consumes 1/20th of the stamina value, and instantly bursts 10 light blades blended with the breath of death, making continuous fatal cuts on the enemy, totaling the enemy deals 20 times the damage of normal attacks. Death Cut. A new skill is born. Moreover, it is the upper level skill of the skill of Gale Slash. The consumption of stamina value has been doubled again, the number of light blades that erupted has been reduced from 12 to 10, and the total amount of damage caused has also skyrocketed from 12 times to 20 times today. Especially superior skills. With 10 years of gaming experience in the previous life, Sumu naturally understood the concept of high-level skills. The so-called upper-level skills are the skills that have evolved on the basis of the original skills. This skill is not only less expensive than the original skill, but its power far exceeds the original skill. Another name that players have for upper-level skills is boss skills. As the name suggests, boss skills are naturally the skills that can only be obtained by boss. Among NPCs, only those who step into the hero rank can have boss skills. Among monsters, only those who step into the lord rank like Skeleton King can have boss skills. Boss was originally the player's name for the lord's rank and the monsters above the lord's rank. Past life. Boss skills, that is, upper-level skills, have always been the object of players' pursuit. Its attraction to players is no less than the existence of hidden occupations, lost inheritances, and even artifacts. But until the gods came and the world was destroyed, the number of players who had truly acquired high-level skills was less than 10. As a former legendary swordsman, Sumu has never even collected information about obtaining high-level skills in his previous life. It seems that high-level skills can only be obtained by monster bosses and hero NPCs. This shows the preciousness of superior skills. Corresponding to preciousness is the power of superior skills. It can be said that even the most rubbish upper-level skills are far more powerful than those general skills or professional skills that players acquire through normal means. Death Slash is an upper-level skill. That is, boss skills. When looking at this skill, what Sumu thought of was not just this skill. Death Slash was obtained by raising the professional skill of Hurricane Slash to full level through free points, and then advanced. Does that mean that his other skill, Sky Splitting, can also reach full level in this way, and then evolve into his second boss skill? Even as long as the free points are enough, all the skills he will acquire in the future, all can be advanced into boss skills in this way. Boss monsters. The first reason why they are called boss is that they have four-dimensional attributes and health values that far exceed players, NPCs, and ordinary monsters, making them difficult to attack. The second reason is that they have boss skills. The existence of these extremely powerful boss skills enables them to easily slaughter players of the same level or even higher levels, and it also makes it an impossible task for players to single out the boss. Only after reaching a certain level and rank, and then gathering enough people, can you be sure to challenge the boss. Sumu smiled, even though only the skeleton's face couldn't make a smile. Free points. If his conjectures come true, with the support of a steady stream of free points, he can upgrade all the skills he acquired in the future into boss skills. If he has enough skills, the strongest boss in the history of the game world is about to be born. Evolved Blast Slash from a common skill to a boss skill Death Slash, consuming a total of 14 free points. This also reduced the number of free points that Sumu now has from the original 11 points to 1 point. He casually added the remaining 1 free point to Sky Slash and raised its level from level 1 to level 2, and Sumu's mood gradually calmed down. The strongest boss in history. This is the goal of Sumu. To accomplish this goal, he not only needs to improve his career template and his four-dimensional attributes, but also needs to obtain a lot of free points and skills. As such, his development direction needs a little improvement. The skeleton brother still has to accept it. But enough is enough. Except for the skeleton boy who must be enslaved, the remaining skeletons will become experience points, career templates, and free points for Sumu to grow again. As mentioned earlier, the skeletons in the elite ranks already possess simple wisdom. To have wisdom means to have memory. As the existence of the warrior rank, the skeleton commander killed by Sumu not only possessed a higher level of wisdom, but also had a memory far beyond that of the elite skeleton. After absorbing the bones of the skeleton leader, Sumu gained a lot of information from it. A large part of it is what Sumu desperately needs. For example, the number and distribution of the rank skeletons of the warriors under the Skeleton King, for example, the relevant information of the Skeleton King, the ruler of the buried land, and so on. In general, there are a lot of warrior rank skeletons under the Skeleton King. In addition to the 8 skeleton leaders who lead the 8 skeleton legions, there are more warrior rank skeletons in the Death Castle where the Skeleton King lives. It stands to reason that as the orthodox advancement path of the skeleton family, the number of skeleton leaders should be the largest among warrior rank skeletons. But in the entire burial place, except for the unknown skeleton leaders hidden in the corners, the skeleton leaders under the Skeleton King, only these 8. Because Skeleton King himself is also harvesting skeletons. The 8 great skeleton commanders, these are the 8 great princes entrusted by the Skeleton King, who assist him in ruling this vast burial place. These 8 princes are not fixed. Once a new skeleton lord is born in the boneyard, you can challenge one of the 8 princes. Those who win will become new princes under the Skeleton King, those who lose will be swallowed by the Skeleton King. Yes. The skeleton commander is not eligible to devour the skeletons of the warrior rank. They can devour only the skeletons at the elite level and below. The skeleton of the warrior rank, only the Skeleton King can swallow it. The skeleton family is a family that harvests each other. As the ruler of the entire boneyard, the Skeleton King naturally stands at the top of this harvesting chain. It disdains to devour those skeletons that are too far from its own rank, but the skeletons of the warrior rank will not let go. No one knows how long the boneyard has existed. No one knows how many warrior rank skeletons the Skeleton King devoured. Perhaps, when the Skeleton King became the ruler of the bone burial ground, this chain of devouring each other has been determined, and the Skeleton King himself is the biggest beneficiary of this harvesting chain. Of course, this is just the usual case. There are countless skeletons in the burial place, and naturally, skeletons with extraordinary talents or high consciousness will be born. After this kind of skeleton evolves to the warrior rank, it may not challenge the 8 princes, nor join the Skeleton King's command. Another option for them is to hide. Grow sneakily, wait until you have enough strength to challenge the Skeleton King and seize the dominion of the boneyard, or hide forever from being discovered. Once they are discovered by Skeleton's army of skeletons, a war begins. As long as there is no strength against the Skeleton King, what awaits them is still being swallowed by the Skeleton King. In this way, as a result of the long accumulation of time on the orthodox evolutionary path of the skeleton family, there are only 8 skeleton leaders who have stepped into the warrior rank of the 8 princes. In comparison, on the contrary, the number of warrior skeletons from other professions with more difficult advancement is a little more. This kind of skeleton does not threaten the rule of the Skeleton King, and it is the best assistant for the Skeleton King to enhance his power. Naturally, it will be continuously collected and accumulated by the Skeleton King, and in the memory of the skeleton commander. These warrior skeletons of various but varied types are basically stationed in the Skeleton King's habitat, the Castle of Death. So, the difficulty of collecting warrior career templates seems to be easier than I thought. Little by little, the information from the skeleton commander was straightened out, and the soul fire in Sumu's eyes flickered slightly. He already has an idea. If the plan is successful, he doesn't need to face the terrifying Skeleton King. He will be able to obtain enough warrior career templates to raise his rank from elite to warrior. A few days later, a skeleton army with a total number of more than 4,000 is marching in the wilderness, heading towards the core of the burial place, the Death Castle where the Skeleton King lives. The skeleton army, composed of more than 4,000 skeletons, is basically equivalent to the number of legions under a full skeleton commander. Only, it is a little different from the skeleton legion commanded by the skeleton king. In addition to the necessary configurations such as archers, skeleton mage, and skeleton warriors, this skeleton legion has the largest number of skeleton guards and skeleton guards. As special skeletons that focus on physique growth, the meaning of skeleton guards and skeleton guards in the skeleton army is to guard the skeleton generals or skeleton leaders as the main general. And this skeleton army. There are very few skeleton guards and skeleton guards around the main general, but there are a large number of skeleton guards and skeleton guards as meat shields on the outer layer of the skeleton army. It seems that the meaning of the existence of the skeleton guards and skeleton guards in this skeleton army is not to protect the main general, but to protect the entire skeleton army. This is incomprehensible to the skeleton family. Because the meaning of the existence of the entire skeleton family is to build up higher-order existences, rather than letting high-level skeletons guard those low-level skeletons that don't even have consciousness and self. The core of skeletons galloped all the way. They only stopped when they were more than 10 kilometers away from the Death Castle. In front of them, a larger army of skeletons appeared. Not only that. On the left and right sides of this strange skeleton army, there are also two larger skeleton army groups. They have stepped into the encirclement. As expected of the skeleton king. This breath is really terrifying. Outside the castle of the dead. In a small dirt bag only a few hundred meters away from the skeleton king's habitat, Sumu, with only half of his head exposed, restrained his breath as much as possible to avoid being discovered. Not far in front of him, a behemoth with a height of more than 2 meters, 5 hurried away with a few warrior skeletons and disappeared from his field of vision. This is Skeletron, the owner of the Lord Job template. The king of the skeletons, the ruler of the boneyard. Sumu dared not approach. I can't see the specific appearance of this skeleton king. But just the terrifying aura emanating from Skeleton King made Sumu's heart skip a beat. It's the Skeleton King after all. One that has existed for a long time and devoured countless warrior skeletons. Its strength is not to mention Sumu, even among the monster lords of the same rank, it is also an absolute powerhouse. If he faced the Skeleton King head-on, I'm afraid Sumu wouldn't even have a chance to make a move, and he would be killed in one hit. Carefully hiding in the small dirt bag, watching the huge figure of the Skeleton King slowly disappear. After confirming that the Skeleton King was far away, he raised his head and slowly crawled out of the small dirt bag. The soul fire in his eyes flickered slightly, and Sumu was in a very happy mood. Since the Skeleton King really appeared, it means that his plan was successful. These days, Sumu took the skeleton army under his command for hundreds of kilometers and devoured the skeleton army of the 4 skeleton kings. Except for one skeleton leader who was enslaved and became Sumu's younger brother, the remaining 3 skeleton leaders and most of the elite skeletons were killed and swallowed, becoming Sumu's experience, attributes, and free points to grow again. In addition to the skeleton army that was devoured at the beginning, 5 of the 8 princes under the Skeleton King's command had already been damaged in Sumu's hands. The 5 skeleton leaders were beheaded. 5 skeleton legions were devoured. Even for the Skeleton King, this was a heavy loss. When Sumu was about to attack the 6th skeleton army, the remaining 3 skeleton army had been assembled under the orders of Skeletron, and only patrolled around the Castle of Death. And as soon as there is any sign of the skeleton army under Sumu's command, the 3 skeleton corps will gather at the first time to outflank them. So, Sumu made a plan. Let the skeleton he conquered lead the younger brother to lead the skeleton army under his command, and blatantly attack the Death Castle, making the appearance of taking the Death Castle. He himself moved quietly and hid around the Castle of Death in advance. Skeleton King didn't know who his enemy was and what rank he was in. Once he learns that the enemy is besieged, he is bound to take action himself and kill the enemy who dares to offend his majesty. By this time, Sumu's chance is here. The development of things was just as he expected, the core of skeletons was besieged, and the Skeleton King who got the news also left the Death Castle and rushed to the battlefield with several warrior skeletons under his command. In this way, the existence that threatened him the most in the Death Castle was called away from the mountain. The Skeleton King has gone to the battlefield. On Sumu's side, even he himself couldn't bear a blow from the Skeleton King, not to mention the skeleton younger brother under his command. When Sumu came up with this plan, the core of bones was abandoned. The purpose of their existence is to hold back Skeleton King, so that it cannot return to the Death Castle in a short time, delaying Sumu's hunting plan. So, when he devoured the 4 skeleton armies under the Skeleton King's command, Sumu could choose and keep all the skeletons with strong defenses such as the Skeleton Guard and the Skeleton Guard, in order to delay it for a longer period of time. Now, the Skeleton King is gone. Sumu also officially started his hunt. No one knows how long the Death Castle has been around. But judging from its crumbling walls and dilapidated traces, this ancient dilapidated castle has existed for at least hundreds of years. After crawling out of the small dirt bag, Sumu concealed his figure as much as possible, and quietly touched the Death Castle. This castle is huge. In addition to the collapsed position, the remaining city walls will be patrolled by a squad of skeletons composed of archers or spellcasters. As the absolute core of the burial ground, there are no skeleton soldiers in the Death Castle. The lowest level patrol skeletons are all advanced skeletons such as skeleton warriors, skeleton archers, and skeleton mages, and as the patrol team captain, there are elite skeletons such as skeleton warriors, skeleton archers, and horror mages. Further up, it is the skeleton of the warrior rank. These warrior skeletons with great autonomy in the Death Castle are the targets of Sumu hunting. Approaching the city wall cautiously, jumped in through the collapsed part, and when a team of skeletons finished patrolling and turned their backs to the collapsed part, Sumu climbed up lightly and appeared above the city wall. Behind him is a collapsed city wall. In front of him is a team of skeleton archers, including an elite skeleton archer and 10 advanced skeleton archers. Skeletons have no flesh. When he was on the ground, Sumu could also reduce the sound by stepping lightly. On this section of the city wall made entirely of stone, even if he lightly stepped, it was difficult to avoid making the sound. So, after appearing on this section of the city wall, Sumu simply stopped hiding his figure and charged directly towards the skeleton team. Click! The crisp crash of bones and rocks resounded on the city walls. The skeleton squad, which was no more than 10 meters away from Sumu, was indeed alarmed. The skeleton archer clenched the bone bow tightly, and the skeleton archer as the captain turned around at the first time, a deathly breath appeared on the pale bone bow in his hand, meow towards this side. Shock? Faced with what was expected, Sumu didn't have the slightest mood swing. His pace quickened a bit. The skeleton sword in his hand was cut out at this moment, shrouding the entire skeleton team in it. Boss skill. Smashing the air. The smashing slash is the second boss skill that Sumu has acquired. After beheading the 3 skeleton leaders and killing many of the elite skeletons under their command, Sumu's free points have long exceeded the number of 20 points. Before coming this time, Sumu also consumed 13 free points to upgrade his second skill, Cracking the Sky, to full level, and evolved it into a boss skill. Sky Smashing, active skill, upper level skill of sky slashing, cannot be upgraded. It consumes 1/20th of the stamina value and releases a light blade with a coverage area of 120 to the front, causing 2 times the normal attack to the enemies within the coverage area. Damage. Each time an enemy is killed, the blade of light splits once, causing half the splash damage of the previous damage to enemies within the coverage area. Judging from the skill description, Smashing the Sky doesn't seem to be much stronger than Cracking the Sky. But what is a normal attack? It was a blow with Sumu's current strength and agility combined with the sharpness of the skeleton maw blade. I don't dare to say more. At this time, Sumu slashed out, and it was easy to kill an elite skeleton in seconds. What is splash damage? Just like now. Smashed out. A dark red blade of light burst out from the skeleton's sword in an instant, spanning the distance of several meters between Sumu and the skeleton team, and slashing at the skeleton archer closest to him. No doubt. This skeleton archer with only the advanced rank was killed instantly, and while beheading the skeleton archer, 10 equally dark red but much smaller light blades split out and attacked in all directions. These tiny light blades are splash damage. If only that was the case. This skill is nothing. But after beheading the first skeleton archer, the dark red blade of light continued to move forward, killing the second, third, and fourth skeleton archers on the line. Each time a skeleton archer is killed, the blade of light splits. And those small light blades that split out, double damage, after beheading an advanced skeleton, split again, 0.5 times damage. Each time you kill an enemy, the blade of light splits. So back and forth. This near-infinite split will not stop until all the enemies within the coverage area of the light blade are killed, or the final split light blade is not enough to kill the enemy. This is terrible. Because, if Sumu's initial attack is enough, and the enemies he faces are dense enough, theoretically, this move will split infinitely. Until all the enemies are killed. This is the smashing slash. A magic weapon that can theoretically kill hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of enemies with one move. City wall. Sumu slashed out. Countless tiny dark red light blades spread over every inch of space within a radius of dozens of meters. Under this dense and sharp attack, the skeleton team did not even take a breath, and they were all beheaded and turned into broken bones all over the ground. Ignore the corpses. After doing all this, Sumu lowered his body, relying on the guardrail on the inside of the city wall to cover it, and sneaked away quietly towards the other side of the city wall. There is an arrow tower. His first target, a skeletal sniper who stepped into the ranks of warriors, on that arrow tower. The skeleton team on this city wall has been cleared by him, and no new skeletons will come in a short time. What he needs to pay attention to is not to be discovered by the skeleton team on the other 3 walls. There are countless strong people in the Death Castle. There are at least a dozen skeletons who have reached the warrior rank alone. Once the skeletons found him and released the signal of the enemy's invasion, I am afraid that he would immediately face the siege of a large number of warrior skeletons and elite skeletons. Even with 2 boss skills, Sumu didn't think he could escape safely under the siege of dozens, or even dozens of high-level undead, such as dark mages, skeletal snipers, skeleton swordsmen, and skeleton wardens. As for the bones, the so-called ultimate meaning of stealth, isn't it Kai Wuxuang? As long as all the skeletons who found him were beheaded, naturally no skeleton would know that he had sneaked into the Castle of Death. Progress little by little. Sumu was quickly approaching the arrow tower. When he arrived under the arrow tower, he stagnated instead, curled up and hid in a small corner. In this corner, Sumu only had to lean out to see the skeletal sniper in the arrow tower. Same. As long as he charges, he can cross a short step and rush from this corner to the back of the skeletal sniper in the arrow tower. But he didn't act in a hurry. Entering this Castle of Death, there are 2 things that Sumu needs to pay attention to most. The first point is not to disturb the skeletons in the castle, so as not to cause him to be besieged by a large number of warrior skeletons, elite skeletons, and advanced skeletons. The second point is to pay attention to the time of Skeleton King's return. Sumu didn't know which way the Skeleton King would control the warrior rank skeletons under his command. If it is the control method brought about by the deterrence of the skeleton warrior and the shock of the skeleton warrior, even if he kills all the skeletons in the Death Castle, the Skeleton King will not notice it at all. In this case, it will only return after destroying the skeleton army under Sumu. If it is an enslavement method like Sumu, as long as he kills any warrior skeleton in the Castle of Death, the Skeleton King will know that someone has invaded the Castle of Death. In this case, the Skeleton King is likely to rush back to the Death Castle as quickly as possible to kill the invaders. Sumu dared not gamble. So he is waiting for his time. Time passed. Sumu hid in that corner motionless, as if he was a dead corpse. Finally, when more than 10 minutes passed, a large amount of information was suddenly refreshed from his attribute panel. Sumu's figure also suddenly rushed out. If you're enjoying my content, please consider donating a coffee. Or checking out my shirts on TeePublic. Your servant, Skullguard, is dead. Your servant, Skullguard, is dead. Your servant, Skull Warrior, is dead. Your servant, Skull Warlord, has died. Your servant. In an instant, there are dozens of pieces of information refreshed from Sumu's attribute panel, all of which are news of the death of the skeleton brothers under his command. Before that, Sumu had taken over the control of the only skeleton commander under his command and checked the battle situation more than 10 kilometers away. After being surrounded by the 3 skeleton legions, the 3 skeleton legions that belonged to the Skeleton King were not in a hurry, they only surrounded and did not kill, as if they were waiting for the arrival of the Skeleton King. And now, dozens of skeleton brothers were killed at almost the same time. It seems that only the Skeleton King can do it. View switching. When Sumu focused his attention on a skeleton boy in the core of skeletons, he really saw that tall figure. The furious Skeleton King rushed into his skeleton army, and the two-handed warhammer in his hand slammed down fiercely. An explosive shock wave spread with the warhammer as the center, shattering all the skeletons within a radius of dozens of meters and turning them into powder. The Skeleton King is at war. Death Castle is about 10 kilometers away from the battlefield. It is conservatively estimated that it will take about 5 or 6 minutes for Skeleton King to rush from the battlefield to Death Castle. So, the soul fire in the eye sockets flickered slightly, and the bones of the whole body were tense at this moment. Sumu's body rushed out like a leopard that had finished charging, and the target was the bone sniper in the arrow tower. Step out. Over a distance of more than 10 meters. When the skeletal sniper and the 2 skeletal shooters beside him appeared in front of him, the skeletal sword in Sumu's hand raised high, and slashed out. Death cut. 10 dark blades of light erupted. It's like a cage that surrounds the skeleton sniper and 2 skeleton shooters. With the extremely sharp cutting sound, large pieces of bone powder flew up. Of the 10 light blades, the 2 skeleton shooters endured the first 4, and the remaining 6 were all endured by the skeleton sniper. When the dark edge disappeared, the 3 skeletons had been cut into several segments and lay on the ground. Click. 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 With 3 consecutive crisp sounds, the heads left by the 3 skeletons were shattered, and then Sumu leaned down, eroding and absorbing the bones left by the skeletal sniper. You killed the skeleton sniper. You have gained 5,000 experience points. You killed the bone shooter *2. You have gained 1,000 experience points. You have absorbed the essence of the bones, and your body is stronger. Your strength increased by 3. Your agility has increased by 45. Your physique has increased by 2 points. You have obtained the transfer information of the Warrior Professional Template Bone Sniper. The second Warrior Profession template is here. Taking a look at the information refreshed on the attribute panel, Sumu ignored the bones left by the 2 elite skeletons, left the arrow tower immediately, and dived towards the center of the castle. He is in a hurry. The skeletons left by the 2 elite skeletons could provide him with extremely limited attribute values, so he simply gave up. In the other 3 arrow towers on the city wall, there is also a skeleton sniper in each. However, their attention is mainly outside the Castle of Death. As long as they sneak into the Castle of Death, they can basically avoid the sight of the 3 skeletal snipers. Recalling the information he had received from the skeleton commander, Sumu moved cautiously along the edge of the castle aisle. This is the heart of the burial ground. Has the strongest aura of death. Nature. There are no plants in this castle. But the deserted open spaces and training grounds were covered with broken bones. Even in the corners of the aisles of the castle, there are a large number of skeletons and skeletons piled up. These are the skeletons left by those killed skeletons piled up over a long period of time. Carefully pass through the front yard of the castle and enter the interior of the castle. Sumu's movement stopped again. In front of him, two skeleton squads were passing through an aisle. There are two skeleton squads, one is a skeleton warrior led by a skeleton general, and the other is a skeleton archer led by a skeleton archer. Judging from the route of travel, the skeleton warrior team is going to patrol the front yard of the castle, and the skeleton archer team is going to patrol the interior of the castle. The two skeleton squads, one after the other, staggered across the fork in front of Sumu. Go slowly. Sumu calculated the travel time of the two skeleton teams. When the two skeleton teams overlapped on the fork, he suddenly rushed out of the hiding place in the aisle, smashing the air. Soon, dark red light blades spread out. Tear up all the skeletons in the two skeleton teams and turn them into broken bones all over the ground. Sumu quickened his pace, past this fork, and entered the interior of the castle along the stairs. After arriving inside the castle, Sumu felt much more relaxed. There are no patrols inside the castle, some just stand in one position for a long time without moving, like statue-like skeleton guards and skeleton guards. With Sumu's abilities, sneaking into the castle without alerting these skeleton guards and skeleton guards is a breeze. Soon, following the route in the memory of the skeleton commander, Sumu bypassed many skeleton guards and appeared in a hall. This hall has a radius of more than 100 meters. In the entire hall, apart from a few stone pillars supporting the dome on both sides, the only decoration is the same stone throne located in the deepest part of the hall. This is Skeletron's location. Usually, the Skeleton King is sleeping on this throne, when needed. It is also in this hall, to summon the skeleton subordinates of the many warriors under his command. In front of the throne, there are two doors on the left and right sides of the hall. These two doors, one leads to the bedroom, it should be the place where the owner of the castle rested at the very beginning, the other leads to the library once, this was the place where the caster hired by the castle owner rested and studied. And now, in this library, there is a second target for Sumu to hunt. Inside the library, a figure is studying something in front of the stone table. This figure is extremely thin, and the whole body is shrouded in a worn robe with a hood. Only when the breeze blew in from the window of the library and blew the shabby robe up, the essence of what was hidden under the robe could be seen. Sense and bones. This is a skeleton. To be precise, it is a warrior-level skeleton who has stepped into the warrior rank, not only has a certain wisdom, but also awakened a trace of memory from his life, the Dark Mage. The burial grounds are scarce in resources. Except for the skeletons everywhere and the omnipresent breath of death, there is nothing to say. The so-called research of this Dark Mage is just to pass the time according to its habits, before death. Perhaps, repeating this behavior can make it wake up more memories of its life. Click. The crisp footsteps sounded in the library room. The Dark Mage gave up the futile research, threw aside a skull on the stone table with the soul fire flickering in it, and turned around. Perhaps, in the knowledge of this Dark Mage, no one can nor dare to invade the Castle of Death. The sound of footsteps in the library meant that its cruel king was about to summon it again. However, when it turned around, what was waiting for it was not the skeleton guard of the past, but a dark edge. Death cut. The dark edge disappeared. After killing the Dark Mage with one big move, Sumu habitually squatted down and absorbed the bones left by the warrior skeleton. You killed the Dark Mage. You have gained 6,500 experience points. You have absorbed the essence of the bones, and your body is stronger. Your spirit increased by 25 points. You have obtained the transfer information of the warrior profession template Dark Mage. The caster of the skeleton family is worthy of being a model of infirmity and thin blood. After absorbing the essence of his bones, in addition to a substantial increase in his spiritual attributes, his other 3 attributes did not increase at all. But, in comparison, Sumu prefers this growth method. The most difficult thing for the skeleton family to grow is the spiritual attribute. He hunted the Dark Mage in order to integrate his professional template into his warrior profession, and when he next advanced, he could greatly improve his spiritual growth. Sumu is delighted with this result. The third warrior career template is here. Your servant Skull Warlord has died. Your servant Skull Mage is dead. Your servant Terror Mage is dead. Your servant. On the property panel, a large amount of information is constantly refreshed, all the time. Indicates that his skeleton army is still under siege. View switching. When Sumu looked around with the vision of a skeleton in the core of skeletons, the huge and terrifying figure of the Skeleton King had indeed disappeared from the battlefield. Instead, the three skeleton armies that are besieging Sumu's skeleton brother. Sumu didn't know if Skeletron had just left the battlefield, or if he had left the battlefield after killing the skeleton sniper himself. He counted the time. Almost 3 minutes have passed since the killing of the skeleton sniper. If the Skeleton King left the battlefield immediately after killing the skeleton sniper himself and rushed towards the Death Castle, conservatively, he still has about 2 minutes to hunt down the fourth skeleton warrior and get the fourth warrior profession template. 2 minutes. A skeleton warrior. Enough time. Because Sumu had already planned the route when he sneaked into the castle. The fourth warrior skeleton he's hunting, just below this library. The entire Death Castle is a 3-tiered design. In the front is the front yard surrounded by the city wall and the arrow tower. The large open space was originally used as a training ground. In the middle is the main body of the castle, including the servant room on the lower floor, the warrior resting place on the middle floor and the hall on the upper floor. Lord's bedroom. Behind the castle is the prison. According to the habit of NPC nobles in Second World, the castle's prison is used to build underground in the entire castle. The entrance to the prison is at the rear of the castle. The main body of the castle and the wall behind the castle form a relatively closed space. Even if there is any movement in this closed space, it is not easy to attract attention. The fourth warrior skeleton that Sumu wanted to hunt was located in this enclosed space. Just jump out of this library window, he can appear in front of that warrior skeleton. Near the window. Sumu glanced down. Against the gloomy sky, he could vaguely see a burly figure at the entrance of the prison. After estimating the height and distance between the two, Sumu climbed up the window with the skeleton knife in hand, unaware of the burly skeleton at the entrance of the prison, and jumped down. The castle is tall. The windows on the 3rd floor are at least 7 or 8 meters above the ground. With Sumu's current 4-dimensional properties, this height is nothing. Not only will it not hurt him, but it will greatly enhance the power of his next blow. The sky was dark and gloomy. Under the cover of this night-like sky, Sumu jumped out of the window like a big bird, with a flickering cold light, pounced towards the sturdy skeleton on the ground. The height of 7 or 8 meters is fleeting in the blink of an eye. When he was only 2 or 3 meters away from the sturdy skeleton, the skeleton sword in Sumu's hand was already raised high. Next moment, all the power is poured into the skeleton sword. The blade that shone with cold light, under the dual blessing of Sumu's own strength and the gravity brought by falling from a high altitude, slashed towards the neck of this sturdy skeleton. Death cut. Do. A series of dull clashing sounds spread far away. Sumu's knife cut out smoothly. The jet-black light blade that burst out of the death cutting also cut on the body of the sturdy skeleton. But not the neck. At the last moment when the death cut struck, this skeleton seemed to have a feeling in his heart, and at the same time as his body burst back, he blocked his body with a serrated bone knife like a door in his hand. Blocked the blow. The 10 blades of light were all slashed on the huge bone knife full of serrated teeth in the hands of the sturdy skeleton. Moreover, the damage of Sumu's 20 times normal attack not only did not cut off the bone knife, but only left traces on it. Armed with skeletons, it is the most direct response to a skeleton's 4-dimensional attributes and defense capabilities. Although expected, but when he was really facing it, Sumu knew how strong the defense capability of this warrior skeleton, who only focused on physical growth, was. That's right. The last skeleton that Sumu wants to hunt is the skeleton that focuses on the growth of the physique, the advanced warrior of the skeleton guard, the skeleton warden. Skeleton Master's balance. Skeleton Sniper speed. Dark Mage spirit. Coupled with this Skeleton Warden who focuses on physique growth. The warrior profession that is based on the fusion of these four professional templates is the warrior profession Sumu wants. Only. The defensibility of this Skeleton Warden seems to be beyond Sumu's imagination. The Skeleton Warden is the Skeleton Warden and the Skeleton Warden's warrior tier. As a warrior profession in this evolutionary chain, its skeleton armament is not a tower shield like a skeleton guard and a skeleton guard, but a serrated bone knife like a door. Reason. Simple. Because the Skeleton Warden doesn't need tower shields to enhance his defense at all. The Skeleton Warden is not tall. Even shorter than Sumu, only a little over 1.7 meters. But this is not a tall body, but it seems like bone hyperplasia, filled with a lot of bones. Ordinary skeletons have only one skeleton, and the inside of the skeleton is hollow. The Skeleton Warden's skeletal body gave birth to countless long bone spurs, and these bone spurs grew in a disorderly manner, almost completely filling the inside of the Skeleton Warden's skeleton. Simply put, ordinary skeletons, including today's Sumu, are just an empty shell, composed of bones, but this Skeleton Warden is an entity composed of countless bones. With such a body, combined with the super high physique of the Skeleton Warden, it is no wonder that it has a physical defense beyond Sumu's imagination. Corresponding to his super physique and defense, the Skeleton Warden is very slow. Not only because its agility growth length is too low, the bone spurs that almost completely fill the inside of the skeleton are also an important factor affecting the speed of the Skeleton Warden. Sumu's fatal blow was blocked by the Skeleton Warden. The serrated bone knife in its hand also slashed out the next moment, attacking Sumu's side. But Skeleton Warden is too slow. Not much better than the hordes of zombies Sumu has ever encountered. With just a flick of a flash, he dodged the blow. Subsequently, the sturdy and powerful right limb slammed heavily on the ground, leaving a deep footprint on the ground. Sumu's body also increased in speed at this moment, and appeared behind the Skeleton Warden. Death cut. For the first time, Sumu had already seen the terrifying defensive ability of the Skeleton Warden, and he no longer had any luck in his heart. Normal attacks are difficult to deal damage to the Skeleton Warden. Only the Death Cut boss skill can make him kill the Skeleton Warden as soon as possible and obtain his professional template. And, to avoid the front of the Skeleton Warden with the strongest defense. Like zombies. Slow speed is the biggest weakness of the Skeleton Warden. As a guard, the Skeleton Warden is well deserved. When it appears on the battlefield, it can also play a huge role. But in this one-on-one battle, the Skeleton Warden can only be a moving target. The second cut of death cuts out. The 10 blades of light were connected into one piece, and at the moment of bursting out, they slashed on the body of the Skeleton Warden. And it's its neck. All skeletons have weaknesses, and the Skeleton Warden is no exception. Even a Skeleton Warden with such a level of physical defense, after his neck is cut off, he can still only be slaughtered. Aside from speed, the neck is the biggest weakness of the Skeleton Warden. One strike. The deadly attack of 20 times the normal attack slashed on the neck of the Skeleton Warden, directly severing half of the Skeleton Warden's cervical vertebrae. Just one more knife. The career template owned by this warrior skeleton will become Sumu's trophy. Only, maybe it was because the Skeleton Warden felt the danger of death, or maybe it was because Sumu's luck was really bad. After being hit by Sumu, the Skeleton Warden roared violently. A series of crisp footsteps gradually came, getting closer and closer. Not only that. Sumu also clearly felt that an extremely terrifying aura was coming at an extremely fast speed, approaching the Death Castle. His heart sank. Skeletons in the castle were alerted. At the same time, the Skeleton King is also coming back faster than he expected. Retreat? Still not going back? The skeletons in the Death Castle have been alerted, and it will not be long before a large number of elite skeletons and warrior skeletons will appear, besieging him in this closed space. And judging from the speed at which the terrifying aura was approaching, it won't take too long, and the Skeleton King who has approached the Death Castle will also appear in front of him. No matter how confident he is in his own strength, Sumu has to admit that if he is trapped here, when the Skeleton King appears, what awaits him is a mortal kill. But, just retreating like this, Sumu was even more reconciled. The collection of the 4 major professional templates is only the last knife. If he just retreats like this, it will be very difficult for him to find such a good opportunity in the future. The level of intelligence of the Skeleton King is not much worse than that of human beings. With this experience, I am afraid that next time Sumu will face a trap. Retreat? Of course not. The angry roar of the Skeleton King has come from far away, which indicates that this terrifying existence has entered the Castle of Death and is rushing towards this side. This feeling of death approaching not only did not make Sumu feel intimidated, but made his blood boil. This is the first time that Sumu has felt this way since he was reborn into the icy race of skeletons. Wealth is in danger. Since he wants to become the strongest boss in the history of the game world, the Skeleton King of the mere Lord rank, how can he become an obstacle to him? All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind like lightning, and Sumu made a decision in his heart. Reinforcements have arrived. In the dense footsteps, a tall skeleton with a 2-handed sword appeared in the closed space with more than 10 elite skeletons and advanced skeletons, blocking the only way out of this space. Behind Sumu is the skeleton warden. In front of him was this tall skeleton that had just arrived. Behind this tall skeleton, more warrior skeletons and elite skeletons are coming. In the front yard of the Castle of Death, the Skeleton King, who is out of anger, is coming at full speed. Boom! A heavy foot stomped on the ground. Sumu's figure soars into the air. Instead of rushing towards the skeleton warden, he rushed towards the tall skeleton standing in front of him. Death cut. Smashing the air. The 2 boss skills were cut out one after another, and the dark blade of light and the dark red light flashed alternately, shrouding the isle within a range of tens of meters. The tall skeleton took the lead and was shrouded in 2 boss skills. Also in the warrior rank, this tall skeleton is far from the tyrannical defense ability of the skeleton warden, and was beheaded the moment he was hit by death cut. Then, the dark red blade of light split apart, and while beheading the elite skeletons and advanced skeletons in the isle, it also continued to split and extend into the distance, so that the skeletons who came to help later had to temporarily avoid the edge. Killing a warrior skeleton with 1 knife, Sumu didn't stand still. He grabbed the skeleton of the warrior whose soul was still burning, jumped to avoid the attack of the skeleton warden, and appeared behind it. The second time, the skeleton warden turned his back to himself. With a slight movement of his jawbone, as if smiling, Sumu passed the skeleton warden with his back to him and glanced ahead. The tall and terrifying figure appeared. The Skeleton King has arrived. Only, the enclosed space where Skeletron and Sumu are located is separated by a hallway. And in the aisle, it was crowded with warrior skeletons, elite skeletons, and advanced skeletons who were alerted before and came to help. About 100 meters away, the Skeleton King, who was already in a state of rage, could only watch helplessly as Sumu raised the skeleton sword again and slashed it towards the skeleton warden's neck for the second time. Death cut. No surprises. In the first death cutting, the neck of the skeleton warden had been cut off in half. When the 10 rays of light that erupted for the second time cut continuously on his neck. Even if the neck of the skeleton warden is similar to his body, it is also shrouded in a large number of intricately growing bone spurs, and it is difficult to avoid being decapitated by a knife. Destiny. The blade of light disappeared. The head of the skeleton warden also fell to the ground. Grabbing the skeleton warden's head, which was much larger than the tall skeleton, and stuffing it under his ribs, Sumu charged at the fastest speed and ran towards the end away from the Skeleton King. This is a semi-enclosed space. That's right. The way to leave is the road that Skeletron is on. But Sumu is not a fool, let alone those skeletons without any wisdom. The normal passage can't leave, won't he find another way? Rushing to the edge of the enclosed space at the fastest speed, Sumu jumped several meters high. When he was exhausted and about to fall, the skeleton sword in his hand stabbed out and easily pierced into the stone city wall. With the help of the skeleton maw blade, Sumu jumped up for the second time and appeared on the thick city wall. At this time, Skeleton King seems to have reacted too. The two-handed warhammer in its hands heavily bombarded the ground, sending the surrounding skeletons flying, while it jumped and chased towards Sumu. Only the Skeleton King is strong. Its speed may not be able to catch up with Sumu. When the Skeleton Dynasty rushed towards the city wall, Sumu jumped off the city wall, and went away at the fastest speed, disappearing into the vast sky. The city walls, only the tall and terrifying figure of the Skeleton King, as well as an angry roar, spread far and wide. After half a day, in a wilderness hundreds of kilometers away from Death Castle, Sumu stopped. It was only at this time that he took out the two skulls. The soul fire in the skull is still burning, which means that the two skeletons who have stepped into the warrior ranks are still alive. But losing their bodies and leaving only a skull, the only thing they can do is to keep opening and closing their mandibles, trying to bite Sumu in this way. Looking at the two skulls, Sumu's mood was a little complicated. The two skulls represent the professional templates of the two warrior ranks. In order to obtain these career templates and gather the materials for his advanced warrior career, his losses can be described as heavy. Little brother skeleton, there is not one left. When Skeletron himself appeared on the battlefield, his warrior skeletons and elite skeletons were the first to be struck. Even the skeleton of the warrior rank is still fragile in front of the Skeleton King. With only the skeleton leader and dozens of elite skeletons under his command, it is naturally difficult to bear the revenge of the Skeleton King. Advanced Skeleton. Skeletons enslaved by Sumu are difficult to be enslaved and recruited by Skeleton King or Skeleton Leader. When the Skeleton King left, the three skeleton armies were ordered by the Skeleton King to surround Sumu's little skeleton brothers, beheading them all, but not a single one was left. After decades of hard work, I returned to before liberation. This is the current Sumu. He is officially a loner. Fortunately, despite all the sacrifices of the skeleton brother, he himself walked around the gate of hell and was almost trapped in the Death Castle to face the furious Skeleton King. His goal was finally achieved. Not only have all the 4 career templates in the plan come together, but there is also an additional warrior career template. At this time, looking at the 2 skulls in front of him, Sumu thought for a moment. He was considering whether to smash the 2 skulls directly to obtain their occupation templates and free points, or to enslave them and turn them into his own skeleton brothers. Killing it will give Sumu his job template, as well as the free points represented by the 2 warrior skeletons. Attribute values are unnecessary. The bodies of these 2 warrior skeletons are all in the Castle of Death, and even the erosion talent cannot absorb the essence of their bones from such a long distance. In the case of enslavement, Sumu can still obtain his professional template. After losing the free points represented by these 2 warrior skeletons, he can immediately obtain 2 skeleton brothers of warrior rank. Although the bodies of these 2 skeleton brothers have fallen in the Castle of Death, but find them too advanced or elite ranks. Under the dual nourishment of death breath and their own soul fire, they will eventually recover their original strength. That day, at least a lot faster than raising 2 warrior skeletons. One side is free points. On one side is the skeleton boy. After careful consideration, Sumu finally chose free points. Free points are never out of date, no matter how many free points you hoard, Sumu can't get enough of them. What about the skeleton boy? Actually, after facing the Skeleton King and feeling the power of the Lord, Sumu did not think that the warrior skeleton could bring any threat to the Skeleton King. Even if it is a dozen or even dozens of warrior skeletons combined, they are not necessarily the opponents of the Skeleton King. No doubt, Sumu and Skeletron are mortal enemies. Whether it was because his evolutionary path required a hunting career template, or because of this raid on the Death Castle, it was determined that he was destined to face the Skeleton King. And in this level of war, the warrior skeleton plays a small role. In contrast, improving his own strength is most in line with Sumu's idea. As for the skeleton boy, if one day, Sumu can replace Skeleton King as the ruler of the boneyard, he can even turn all the skeletons in the boneyard into his own little brother. Thinking of this, Sumu made a decision. The skeleton knife stabbed and smashed the soul fire in the skull, and he began to absorb the information contained in the skull. You killed the skull warden. You have gained 6,300 experience points. You have absorbed the essence of the bones, and your body is stronger. Your physique has increased by 3 points. You have obtained the job transfer information of the warrior profession template Skeleton Warden. You killed the Bone Raider. You have gained 6,100 experience points. You have absorbed the essence of the bones, and your body is stronger. Your strength increased by 2. You have obtained the transfer information of the warrior professional template Bone Raider. 2 more career templates are available. The attribute value absorbed from the skull is negligible. What surprised Sumu was that the bone assaulter profession he accidentally acquired was a warrior profession focused on strength growth. Original. The fusion materials selected by Sumu are the 4 occupations of Skeleton Commander, Skeleton Sniper, Skeleton Warden, and Dark Mage, corresponding to the 4 attributes of strength, agility, constitution, and spirit, respectively. Skeleton Commander is more focused on controlling skeletons, and the growth rate of the strength attribute is not very high. However, in the absence of other options, it is not satisfactory to use the 4-dimensional attribute of the Skeleton Commander into a relatively balanced occupation to represent the strength attribute. No one would have thought that Sumu, just to block the 2 skills released by the skeleton reinforcements, brought him a professional template focusing on the growth of strength attributes. Naturally, there is no need to replace the Skeleton Commander. Strength, Agile, Constitution, Spirit. The 4 warrior professional templates representing these 4 attributes appeared in front of him, and Sumu felt a burst of sincere joy in his heart. Take a look at your own properties panel. He started his 2nd career fusion. Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.